Hello, folks. So, Mr. Lubkowski here. We're going to go through this week's lesson, which is Mozart's Clarinet Concerto in A major. So, let's make a beginning. Now, we're going to analyze and listen to this second movement of Mozart's Clarinet Concerto in A major, one of the later pieces he composed in his life. We're going to be covering some of the key words from our Joseph Bologna symphony, but also adding some new key words as well. So, yes, hopefully you're all doing well. So, just to remind us, here are some of the previous keywords, and obviously you can pause this video at any time. Here's some of the previous keywords that we looked at and we used in the Joseph Bologna piece. We do have some new keywords. We will, on the actual system, there is the keyword booklet and sheet and everything which you can access. Don't worry too much about having a keyword sheet at the moment. We will go through and be explaining what these keywords are, and more importantly, making sure you understand what these keywords sound like. I'm going to put this up here. It's probably useful for you to possibly either print screen or potentially copy some of this stuff down, or be able to get back to this point in the video, because all the different words in this piece, all the different definitions in this piece are in these few slides. So I'm just going through these slides relatively slowly. I'm not going to read out all the definitions. You can get back to this point in the video, but they are there for you to be able to go through. We'll explain them, but if you want to get back to do any revision, then obviously you know that all the definitions that this piece has, quite a lot of these definitions we went through already with the Joseph Bologna First Symphony in G major. But there's obviously some new things we're going to go through, and all of them are here, so you can go through and get back to this point to be able to revise, to be able to look at this information. Okay. EOM, by the way, means element of music. So which of the elements of music does that keyword apply to? Okay, so if I just go back slightly, you'll notice that there's things like music basics and dynamics and rhythm. That's where it is in that keyword booklet. So if you have your keyword booklet, you can obviously be looking at that. But again, it's on here on the screen for you. You don't have to copy everything out. It's just there if you want to go back and refer to this at any time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to listen to Mozart's Clarinet Concerto in A major. It's about 6 minutes long, and it's an absolutely wonderful piece of music. So all you need really to do is to listen. Really, I think. Just listen and enjoy. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to that absolutely wonderful piece of music by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, his Clarinet Concerto. Second movement, the Adagio, which, as we'll find out in a second, means slow. So let's have a look at our score. Let's just go through a few of these new keywords and look at some of our older keywords. I've annotated a score here and just kind of to talk you through this, just so we can kind of understand kind of how Mozart's made this piece of music. Again, he was an absolute genius, but he still uses those standard music theory rules. He uses the standard stave, he uses standard notation. So yeah, let's begin. Now, this piece of music is from his Clarinet Concerto. And as you see there, a concerto is a large-scale composition for an orchestra with a soloist or a group of soloists. Now, a group of soloists would be called a concerto grosso. Now, a concerto grosso was something that was used a lot more in the Baroque period. By the time you got to the classical period, they didn't really have concerto grosso. They'd moved on to solo concertos. So this is from a clarinet concerto. And you'll notice there it says the solo performer will alternate between playing with or alongside the larger ensemble. As you can hear with this piece, the clarinet plays as the main soloist with orchestral accompaniment. And obviously in this piece, you'll notice that the orchestra sometimes take on those melodies and tunes while the clarinet isn't playing anything. Okay, so this is the second movement from the Clarinet Concerto. As we said, Adagio, our tempo marking of Adagio up here, means slow. So when you say it's an Adagio, it is slow. It's faster than the slowest tempo, one of the slowest tempos, which is Largo, but it's slower than Andante. Andante means walking pace. Unlike the Bologna, Bologna was in split common time, also known as alla breve time of 2/2. This piece of music is in 3/4, so there's 3 beats. 3 beats in the bar, and each beat is divided into 2. So we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, so this piece of music is 3 beats in a bar. The form of this piece, the structure, is what we call ternary form, and you'll see up here, I've marked this on the top of my score. Ternary form is a 3-part form, A, B, A, where the A section is heard twice, and the B section consists of a contrasting musical material. So this piece of music is in ternary form. So yeah, and obviously the Joseph Bologna first movement of symphony was in rounded binary form. So yes, so that was A, repeated A, and then BA at the end without the coda. And there's a coda in this, so we're going to go through what a coda is later on in this lesson. The key signature. The Joseph Bologna piece we looked at was in G major with 1 sharp in the key signature. You'll notice that this piece of music has 2 sharps in the key signature. It is in the key of D major. In the key of D major. The clarinet, okay, is officially, this is called the Clarinet Concerto, as the soloist is a clarinet. Now, an interesting piece of information for you is that actually this was originally written for a slightly lower version of the clarinet called the basset clarinet. Mozart subsequently then recomposed it, almost slightly changed it to fit a normal clarinet register, but originally it was for a basset clarinet, which was popular, and actually Mozart's friend played the basset clarinet, and Mozart wrote this clarinet concerto for his friend, who I think was called Anton Stadler, who was like a very, very good clarinet player and a basset clarinet player, so Mozart wrote this piece of music for his friend. We have down here a whole bar rest. Now, I just want to focus on that very quickly. A whole bar rest. Now, the whole bar rest here, you'll notice that from our Joseph Bologna work, that is actually what you would call a semi-breve rest. Now, a semi-breve rest is a 4-beat rest. However, if you notice there, we only have 3 beats in a bar. Okay, so a semi-breve rest, officially a 4-beat rest, if it's in a bar that's less than 4 beats, all it means is it's it's a whole bar rest. So either it can be a semi-breve. If it was a 4/4 bar, it would be a 4-beat rest. In this case, that symbol, if you're in 3/4 and it's in the only thing in the bar, it just means a whole beat rest. Okay, so just to be aware that again, it's a semi-breve rest officially, but if you put it in a bar in 3/4 time, it just means be silent for the whole bar. Now, if we look here as well, I've only gone through kind of relatively new keyword terms, but if you actually look here, we've still got similar things. If you look at some of the terms that we've got in here, treble clef and bass clef, is in there, the alto clef is in there, we've got slurs, we've got rests, we've got piano, which means quiet, we've got ties, okay, the curved note which joins together two notes that are the same. We've got lots of things from like that we had in the Joseph Bologna piece. So a lot of this with music is it's the same keywords, it's the same things you'll see at the beginning of a piece of music. We're in a different key, we're in a different time signature, and we're in a different tempo. Okay, and there's some additional instruments in here, but really it doesn't look that much different than the Joseph Bologna score. And once you know what some of these things are, like treble clef and bass clef and alto clef, you will see them in lots of pieces of music. So, now, in this piece of music, the clarinet comes in with its, in fact, I'll just quickly go back and we'll just have a listen to that first phrase of music. So let's have a listen to this first page. Try and maybe follow the clarinet part, okay? You can probably hear where the clarinet melody is going. Let's have a listen to this first page again. Okay, so that's that first page, and you can notice that unlike the Bologna, where you were moving bar after bar, like there was about a bar once every second, in this piece you've got quite a long time to be counting. So if we listen to that again, I'm just going to count the time signature to you, so you can just see how slow this is. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're pretty slow here. Okay, so it's definitely Adagio. It's definitely a piece of music that is slow. What happens is that the clarinet has this initial phrase of 8 bars. Okay, an 8-bar phrase. And then the orchestra takes on that phrase. They take on that phrase and they flesh it out. They add additional harmonies and they put it across the whole orchestra. So you'll notice that initially the flutes, the bassoons, the horns are not playing anything at the beginning, and then they come in as what's called an answering phrase. So they basically like repeat. It's also known as a consequent phrase. So yeah, they just really, they follow on from that clarinet and they restate what the clarinet has done. Now, this little bit here, and we'll have a listen to this in a second, is called an appoggiatura. And this little mini note that's next to this, it's a form of decoration. Now, in the Joseph Bologna, we looked at trills. And actually here, this is a form of a simple decoration called an appoggiatura, which is a non-harmonic note, which is usually heard one note beyond and before the harmony note. It's approached by leap and quitted by step. Okay, so leap is anything more than a note. So this bit goes dum da 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 dum. Okay, so it goes by leap, da da, that's a leap, and then it moves itself down by step, da 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 da. Okay, so that's called an appoggiatura. Now this piece has quite a few appoggiaturas in it, especially in the clarinet part, and it is a type of melodic decoration or melodic ornamentation. Okay, like a trill we had in the Joseph Bologna. We have this little sign here next to this note, which is a natural sign. That means that you can ignore either the key signature. So if it says play F sharps and C sharps, that would mean don't play an F sharp or a C sharp, play an F natural or a C natural. But that one there is a G natural. But the only reason it's there is because previously you'd had a G sharp. So it's just a natural sign, means ignore the key signature or ignore any previous sharps or flats that were put in front of the same pitch note. Okay, let's have a listen to this second page. You hear that Appoggiatura, and here comes the orchestra. So you see that the violins take upon that melody, and the other instruments take upon other harmonies and other melodies as well. Now, a little music theory question. Why do we write two crotchet rests here instead of a minim rest? So you'll see there's two crotchet rests at the bottom of the page there in the cello part. Why? Why do we not just write a minim rest there? Anyone? Well, it's because it's all to do with the fact that this piece of music is in 3 beats in a bar. And actually, if you put a minute, actually it's 3 single beats, so 1, 2, 3. If you put a minim there, it'd be more difficult to follow that rhythm. So actually, sometimes in 3/4, you'd actually put the individual beats there, so you can see the 3 beats in there. You'll notice that it's like beat, beat, rest, and then there's a note, and then there's 2 crotchet rests. It's easier to read. Okay, next part. When we get to this point in the next little bit of phrase of melody in the clarinet has this really lovely descending sequence, okay, a melodic sequence, which that's the bit that goes da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. So each time the sequence starts 1 note higher and then descends down. Again, a very classical thing. A thing that you would get, a very obvious thing to do in classical music is quite a lot of melodic sequences. And again, it's really nice to listen to these sequences. Let's just have a listen to that. And you see here in the violins, the Appoggiatura. Da-dum, da-dum. Here comes a little sequence. Have a listen to the clarinet. And then 1 note higher. Okay, so, and again, that actually continues over the page with the rest of that melodic sequence. You'll notice also that that melodic sequence is answered by the violins. There's almost a little bit like a call and response going on. The clarinet, da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 da. Yeah, so the violins there take on that idea from the clarinet and kind of answer that, and then the clarinet has a question, and the violins then answer that again. So you get this what's called balanced phrasing. Let's just have a listen to that again. Have a listen to the clarinet sequence. Violins answer. Clarinet asks the question. Violins answer. Okay, so that you've got those kind of little lovely kind of melodic sequences with these little answers from the strings. A couple of questions for you. Why do you think Mozart keeps on allowing the woodwind and the brass instruments to be silent? Because he's definitely talented enough to write instrumental parts for them, but he keeps on not having them playing. Why do you think that is? Write it down in your notes. Why do you think Mozart keeps using this transition bar to move between sections? You'll notice that there's this little mini descending sequence. Yeah? da 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 da, and you see it all over the place. Okay, it's pretty much between every single section. You've got the same descending da 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 with a harmony part da 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 at the same time. Okay, have a listen to it, and you'll kind of pick it out. He uses it all over the place. So have a listen. This. Okay, so he keeps on using this. So you listen out for that in the piece. He uses that little transitions phase a lot. Again, why do you think he might be using that? What's the use of that? So, if we look down here at the bottom, we have what's called chromatic movement. You'll notice there's this little sharp next to this G in the bass clef, okay, and in the cello and in the bass. And you've got this chromatic movement. So you've got this melody which moves up by half steps. Okay, that's called chromatic movement. If it doesn't move up in a scale, da 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 da. If it moves up da 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 da. If it moves up by little half steps, that's called chromatic or chromatic movement. And let's have a listen. It says, can you hear how the balanced phrasing provides a satisfying ending to the melodic phrase? So we had our little melodic sequence from the clarinet, da 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 dum, da 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 dum, and then we're moving on to the end of it, da 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 dum, and it's a very satisfying end to a melodic phrase. Have a listen to the end of that melodic phrase. And the Appoggiatura, da 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 da, and the orchestra then take that on again. With the woodwind providing the answer to the strings question. And can you hear that chromatic movement in the bass? You've got this really nice moving bass line, which kind of gives it a lot of kind of additional warmth and kind of oomph to the sound. Have a listen to that little bass line. Listen out for the low strings. Da 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 da. Yeah, that's that chromatic movement, and it really pushes the phrase on. Okay, so we'll notice here we've got what's called a quaver rest. So again, we've had these before, but if you look there, we've got a little quaver rest. That little what looks like a 7 is a half beat rest, a quaver rest. Some of our symbols there that we need to make sure that we're aware of what they are. So let's have a listen to this little bit of this phrase. That Appoggiatura and the transition bar. Okay, and then we're into section B, and it says, how can you tell we've started section B of this piece? What are the differences? Okay, we'll have a listen to that in a second. So we've got the same transition bar then. It's not exactly the same notes, but it's basically the same idea. Da 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 da, and you kind of know where it's going. It pushes you into the next phrase. So let's have a listen to the end of that again and just listen out for that transition bar. Okay, so let's just move on into the next little part. So we're into section B now. We're into section B. And this section, it says here up on my score, is all about the sound and beauty of the clarinet. Remember that the clarinet was a new instrument in the classical period. It had been invented in the classical period. It didn't really exist in the Baroque period at all. So it's a brand new kind of trendy, cool instrument that they're using. And actually this section is where Anton Stadler, the clarinetist who this was composed for, would be showing off his kind of skills, but also the kind of the tone and how kind of amazing the clarinet is and all the different things it can do. Okay, the clarinet's got quite a large range from low notes to high notes. So again, this part kind of shows off what the clarinet can do. Let's just have a listen to this little bit before going through some more keywords. Okay, so you'll hear there's more stuff going on in the clarinet. The clarinet has these little decorated runs. Okay, and you'll notice that there's 3 lines between those. Now, a quaver has 1 line. Okay, like so. You see there in the violins, there's quavers, those half-beat notes. The semi-quavers here have 2 lines. They're quarter-beat notes. Demi-semi-quaver, okay, they're 1/8 of a beat, so 8 of them equals 1, a count of 1. So again, they're really quick, short notes. Okay, a very short note here says here that is half the length of a semiquaver. 32 of these fit into a semibreve. Okay, so, and again, also called a 30-second note in American terminology. So you'll be able to hear that. So listen to just how quick they get played. Here we go, the demi-semis. Okay, yeah, nice and quick. Those demi-semi-quavers in that little descending, ornamented little kind of run, you'd call it. Now, here comes a very unknown musical word, but it's one that's important. You'll notice there, it looks like there's a slur, but they have staccato marks. Now, if you think about that, the slur means that you're supposed to kind of join those notes together, but staccato means you're supposed to make them short and detached. So from that point, how do you make something short and detached also be stuck together and smooth? So that's the symbol for what you get called portato, not potato. Okay, portato. A technique in which successive notes are gently re-articulated while being joined under a single continuing slur. It achieves a kind of pulsation or undulation rather than separating the notes fully. Okay, so this clarinet and this doesn't necessarily you can't hear it as much, but it's not slurred. So if that was da 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 da, that would just be slurred. Staccato would be dum dum dum. If you have a listen to what they actually do. Okay, so there is that. It's almost like a slightly accented slur. Da 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 da. Okay, so that's called portato. So if you ever, 1 second. If you ever see that in a piece of music, it's called portato. So if there's a slur, but there's staccato symbols underneath, it's called portato. So you've hopefully learnt something new today. Even if you do know your music theory, you probably haven't picked up on the keyword of portato before. So how has the instrumentation changed in this section of the piece? And a little question for you. What is the focus of this section? What do you think? If we have a look here, the flutes, the bassoon, the horns are not playing at the moment. Okay, but not only that, the violins and the violas and the cellos are not doing huge amounts either. This bit here, it's like dum bum 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 dum dum da da da. They're definitely less important in this section. If we listen to that, have a listen to what they sound like. Okay, so they're not supposed to be noticed, really, here. The clarinet is the focus at this point. The range, the beauty, the tone of the clarinet is the focus of this part and this section, okay? So, to key words here. These little bits here are what's called turns. They're like an S on its side. Now that's called a turn. And we'll be able to hear them. What's written here is da 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 da. Okay, da 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 da. When you listen to it though, so what's written is da 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 da. What's played when you put that little turn symbol is da 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 da. Have another listen again. This is a turn. So it goes above, below, and back on again. So have a listen. Okay, and that is another form of ornamentation or decoration, melodic ornamentation decoration. So a turn is a short figure consisting of the note above the one indicated, the note itself, the note below the one indicated, and the note itself again. Da 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 da. Okay, rather than just the note, da 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 would be da 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 da. So it's an ornamentation in the melody line. And we have here reminding a flat symbol. You see here at this point here, there is a flat symbol on that note, which means the note must be lowered by one semitone. So again, we've been through that before. I'm just pointing out those little things that we want to be aware of. A concerto is supposed to show off the skills of the soloist and their instrument. Can you tell? This section you definitely can. Section A is all about how beautiful the melody is. Section B is a little bit more showy-offy. Okay, it shows off a little bit more. And the role of these other instruments at this point, okay, they're just keeping things going. They're just filling in those harmonies. That clarinet is doing stuff over the top of it. The rest of the instruments are just kind of like just ticking over until they get something to do. Very nicely ticking over. It sounds very nice, but they're definitely not the star attraction at this point. The clarinet definitely is. So let's have a listen to this page again. Okay, so you can just hear how it's all at this point about what the clarinet is doing. And we continue to have this decorated kind of clarinet melody. You got another demi-semi-quaver there, da da la, and then it goes kind of really low there. You see just how many ledger lines are in that? That's really, really low. And then we get what's called these sextuplets, which are a group of 6 notes of equal length that are performed over the same duration of 4 notes of equal length. So again, this is it's not an ornamentation or decoration, but it's a definite way of showing off the kind of skills of the soloist who's playing this, having sextuplets and this kind of slightly different rhythm that creates over the top of that very simplistic accompaniment. So let's have a listen to this page. So going low in the instrument's range. Here come the sextuplets. Okay, so you get that, and da 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 da. So it gives a bit more rhythmic interest. Let's have a listen to that once more. Listen out for those sextuplets. Kind of hear how it almost seems to kind of pick itself up and dance a little bit more when you've got those sextuplets. Here we go. Okay, so that is our sextuplets. Now at this point, we're moving somewhere else. You'll notice that you can actually see that the strings start doing something slightly different there. They're moving up in what's called arpeggios, and you can visually see that something's kind of changing here in the score. Let's have a listen, see if we can hear it changing as well. And you can kind of tell it's going somewhere. Okay. After that point, the solo clarinet has an ascending chromatic melody. Have a listen. Okay, so you hear how that's doing lots of little steps. Okay, have a listen to that once more. That you can just see how diddly 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 diddle. It's increasing. It hasn't really made itself much louder, but it definitely kind of increases that tension, and it really makes sure that you're aware that something is coming next. Okay, have a listen to that and you'll see, you can hear that trill. After that ascending chromatic melody, you have that little trill, which again is that melodic decoration ornamentation. You'll see the cresce means crescendo, which means gradually getting louder. So it does get louder into the end of this page. Doesn't really start getting louder until the clarinet hits on the trill. So have one more listen to that. Okay, that's again, and if you look at the clarinet here, you can see the clarinet is flying around, going from really, 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 really low in its range, up to high in its range, back down to low in its range. It almost looks like a roller coaster. Do you know what I mean? It just shows just what that clarinet is doing, and it's kind of showing off those skills, while all the other instruments are doing really quite simple things. Okay, let's have a listen to this page. Okay, let's have one more listen to that. Listen out for that clarinet, and we're still in section B, so the focus here is still 100% really on the clarinet and what the clarinet can do as an instrument and what the soloist can make it do. So let's have another listen to that. Okay, now at this point here, you get what's called a cadenza. Okay, so the orchestra finishes off the section and the clarinet moves into what's called a cadenza. Now, a cadenza is an improvised solo part, which basically is showing off. The instrumentalist basically makes up a little bit of the music themselves at this point. Okay, so have a listen to this cadenza. It's not written down on the score. It just basically says cadenza. The soloist basically goes off and does things on their own, and when they're ready, okay, they'll play a specific bit, which then the orchestra comes back in again, and actually we go back into section A at that point. Okay, we've had section A, we've just come to the end now of section B with this little mini cadenza. We go back to section A, that's our ternary ABA form. So let's have a listen to the cadenza. And that's it. Very simple, not a massive, but you can just see it's just a little bit of a made up. It's not quite like a guitar solo, you know, like you get a guitar solo in some like rock songs where the guitarist kind of improvises and stuff. But I suppose that's the closest thing. It's where the soloist would show off what they can do. So let's have a listen to that cadenza again. And then back in to section A. So we have our cadenza there, And as we said there, it's about as close to a guitar solo that classical music got. And then we're back with section A. Okay, now section A here though, when it comes back, is 10 bars shorter than the first section A. So we talked about sandwiches a while ago when we come to sections. Section A, when it comes back, does not have to be exactly the same. In the same way that if you had a piece of white bread, and then you had your section, that was section A, and then you had like your cheese, that's your section B, something different and interesting. And then you had a piece of brown bread on the top, or instead of thick cut bread, you had thin bread. It's still bread, it's still section A, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. So when section A comes back in pieces of music, it doesn't always have to be identical for it still to be section A. As soon as you hear this section, it's the original melody, and you can tell it's the original melody, and therefore it is section A. So let's have a listen to this melody coming back, the return of section A at bar 60. So you've got that melody comes back in. There's nothing really new here, okay? However, the first time round, when the clarinet had finished its little bit of melody and after the transition phase, the orchestra came in and repeated the entire 8 bars. Okay? Here, however, there's none of that. The orchestra does not come in and repeat those 8 bars of that melody. It just continues on into the clarinet's next part of its melody. So have a listen. So that little transition phase, the first time round, okay, pushed itself into the orchestra taking on that melody, filling it out, making it kind of big and grand sounding. This time when section A comes back, just the clarinet continues. So have a listen to the transition, and then it pushes the clarinet back in, not the whole orchestra. Straight back into the clarinet melody, with those answering phrases from the violins. Okay. Now the orchestra repeats and reaffirms a clarinet melody at this point. Okay? Okay, so it doesn't do it the first time round, but it does do it the second time round. It's the last time that the orchestra actually repeats the main part of that clarinet melody. Okay, let's have a listen to that. Transition bar, the orchestra for the last time. They've taken it to forte, make it nice and loud. Okay, so nice and loud. The orchestra then repeats that melody. And now we push into what's called the coda, which is an ending passage, an ending part of the piece of music for these last bars. And in a fast movement in a classical piece, in a concerto, if it was the first movement of a classical concerto, then your coda would be kind of big and kind of loud, and like the stereotypical classical music ending, bum 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 bum, all that kind of stuff. In a slow movement, an adagio, the second movement of a concerto, the adagio, in this piece, it kind of almost, it winds down, it kind of calms itself down, and kind of almost, it's almost like going to sleep. It really calms itself down. So let's have a listen to that. beginning of our coda. Okay, let's continue having a listen. And keep on listening. So we get triplets here. Okay, triplets, where 3 equal notes are played in the time of 2 on the same note value. So have a listen for that. The ones here, da 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 da, and then another trill, and then like an unfinished chord. Okay, you could have ended it at that point, I suppose. Okay. So here, have a listen. Da, 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 da. Could end it. This, though, doesn't. It ends it on what's called an imperfect cadence. It doesn't want it to finish. It doesn't want it to end yet. Okay? Okay, let's have a listen to the last little bit. Okay, just have a listen to that again. Listen to that bass line. Dum, dum. The end. So you see how it kind of almost puts itself to bed? It almost kind of goes to sleep and puts itself to bed. And you'll notice that all at the end, all the instruments come back in. Okay, all the instruments come back in. They haven't played for a while, but they all come back in P, so piano, nice and quiet. So question, I love this piece. Absolutely love this piece. It's a beautiful piece of music. Do you like it? Do you like the piece of music? Even if you don't, hopefully you do like it because it's a glorious piece of music. Again, hopefully when you start analysing a piece of music, you see both the simplicity, especially in classical music. It's not actually too complicated, but it is. Yeah, Mozart, you look at that and it's not that complicated, but it is so beautiful. So something so beautiful out of something comparatively simple. When you actually put it on a piece of paper, it doesn't look like it's going to be that special, but hopefully when you listen to it, you just see and hear just how gorgeous it is, just how beautiful. Just the last keyword at the bottom there, you'll notice it says descending arpeggio. That's one of our keywords, is an arpeggio. So you'll see there, bum, 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 bum. So that's the notes of a chord played one at a time. Okay, so you note the D, A, F sharp, D, and actually all the notes that are being played at that point are all Ds, As, and F sharps. You see there, D, 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 F sharp, A, D, F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, a D, A, F sharp, D, and D, A, F sharp, D. So actually, at that point, they're only really playing the same chord, but with that descending arpeggio, which is what it's called, from the cellos and the basses, you really do get the sense of ending. Have a listen to that once more. Let's listen to the low strings. So, Absolutely beautiful piece of music. So hopefully you've been seeing the various kind of points and some questions popping in at the bottom of the screen. At any point you can go back and have a look at this video. You could go back and refresh your memory, go back to those key words. But yeah, so that is Mozart's Clarinet Concerto. Make sure you filled in the questions on forms, and I will see you next lesson. Thank you very much.